With the end of the season looming, Liverpool have 2 more games to try and secure Champions League qualification for next year, and it's so important for the Reds that they get Champions League football because it can completely determine the entire summer transfer plans and the players and the quality of players that we can bring in. But before we can actually talk about the players that we want to bring in, we need to first talk about those players who are leaving. And Liverpool released a statement on their Twitter saying, and I quote, "We can confirm Roberto Firmino, Naby Keita, James Milner and Oxlade-Chamberlain will leave the club upon the expiry of their contracts this summer. Special acknowledgements will be paid to the quartet at Anfield, with further tributes to follow at the end of the season." And this comes, of course, because Liverpool are playing the last home game of the season at home to Aston Villa, 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. And it's the last time that the crowd are going to get a chance to show their appreciation for these players who've given their all for the club. Obviously, some players will be getting a few more acknowledgements than others, but we'll get into that. And I want to speak about every single player individually, what they've contributed to the club, what their journey throughout, and how we should remember them, really, because some of them might be remembered fondly, some of them we might not remember fondly. But I want to talk about each of them individually and give them their praises. And who better to start with than Roberto Firmino, who joined from Hoffenheim for an initial £21.3 million fee, rising up to £28 million. And he wasn't actually a Jurgen Klopp signing. For someone who's so renowned for being a Jurgen Klopp kind of player, it was actually Brendan Rodgers who signed him. And when he first came, he looked alright, he struggled a little bit, and he actually ended up being injured for quite a lot of the first season. And it's only until Jurgen Klopp came in and Roberto Firmino came back from injury that really saw how good he was. And there were a couple of games that really highlighted that. It was away to Manchester City, in which he played the false 9. We won 4-1 in that game, and it was really the first glimpse of what was going to happen, and the fact that he was going to lead the line for Liverpool. He's actually Liverpool's number 11 at the time, before Mo Salah came in, took the 11 shirt and asked him to move to number 9. But there's so much about Roberto Firmino to love. He's got so many memories at the club, so many goals home and away, especially against Arsenal. He loved to play against Arsenal. And I have it here. He's in his 360 appearances for the club, which is a huge amount. He scored 109 goals and 72 assists. So that's a total of 181 goal contributions in 360 games, which is just minuscule over a goal contribution every other game. And that's massive, because from a forward player, you want goals and you want assists. But he was actually the least prolific of our famous front three of Salah, Mane and Firmino, and he was the one that facilitated Mane and Salah scoring all those goals for us. And without him, arguably he's the most important Jurgen Klopp player in the system we've had over the last few years. And we've seen Cody Gakpo kind of take up the role a little bit. He's getting there. He's filling the shoes of Firmino that Firmino's going to be leaving behind. But really, there is only one Roberto Firmino, and I'm going to miss him so much, because from everything from his crazy celebrations to his no-look finishes, actually being the player who's been booked the most in Premier League history for taking his shirt off in celebration. He's also the all-time Premier League top Brazilian goal scorer, which is also another crazy achievement considering all the other amazing and famous Brazilian players that have played. And of course, he's going to go down as a Liverpool and a Brazilian legend, because Premier League legend as well, because for everything he's done for the club, the way he's facilitated, he's been so good to have around the club. A bit of Samba magic every now and then, and honestly, he is one player who Liverpool are sorely going to miss, and hopefully Gakpo can replace. And the second player leaving is James Milner. Funnily enough, another Brendan Rodgers signing. He joined in a free transfer in the summer of 2015, and what a bargain it's been, honestly. The 330 appearances, 26 goals and 45 assists. It's not great numbers, but honestly, I think he's made up for that 100%. And when you think of James Milner, and when a lot of people talk about James Milner in the media, you hear his talk about his professionalism, his leadership traits, and people often refer to him as Mr. Reliable, but in all honesty, he's been so much more than that. And I think that actually takes away from how good of a footballer he actually is. People think he's this old school kind of English midfielder who tackles and runs, and he is that. But he's actually so technical. He's got so much more to his game. He's actually, if you remember the crazy stat that he was the Champions League top assister in the 2017-2018 campaign. with 9. And when you think about the players that play in the Champions League, you think of like the Messi, the Ronaldos, the Neymars, the Mbappes, etc., etc. And the fact that James Milner got the most assists that season is wild. But it just goes to show how good of a footballer he is. And I kind of almost feel a little bit bad for him at times, because he came from Manchester City because he was tired of playing out on the right wing for Manchester City. He wanted to play in centre of midfield, which is where he'd been playing. He did that for the whole of the first season. However, as soon as it was Klopp's first full season at Liverpool, he ended up playing left back because, Klopp just didn't trust Alberto Moreno, who I really liked, but he just wasn't that good defensively. And he plays the whole season left back, and then after that, he says he doesn't want to play left back anymore, which is fair enough because he's come to play in midfield and that's where he should play. But then he still ends up covering a left back for Andy Robertson when he finally breaks through the team. He ended up covering a right back as well for Trent Alexander-Arnold when Joe Gomez kind of moves more into centre back. And he's kind of been playing defensive midfield as well. So he's played everywhere for Liverpool. And I think a player like himself, you really can't understate how important he was to the team. Yes, again, he was vice-captain of the club. His professionalism, his leadership, everything that the young players look up to and they can see like, oh, this is what I need to do to have a long-standing career because James Milner has done it. But let's not forget his penalties, his goal line clearances, his defending, his everything about him just epitomizes what a Liverpool player should be. And I think it's one where hard work maybe does come first, but the talent follows. And he'll go down as a Liverpool legend and a Premier League legend as well. He's played for so many different clubs: Leeds, Newcastle, Villa, Man City. Rumours are he might go to Brighton at the end of the season. But I think wherever he goes, he'll always be remembered, I think, at Liverpool most fondly, because of the fact that he's won every single trophy there is to win at Liverpool. The fact that he's had the longest spell at one club at Liverpool, which is crazy to think, because you think yourself at Man City, the Newcastle days, Villa, but he's actually spent the longest period of time at Liverpool, had made the most appearances for Liverpool, and that just goes to show like how amazing he is. And the club wants to keep him for another year, which I'm not sure entirely is the right decision, but I think maybe let him go off, let him go to Brighton if that's where he's going to end up, let him play football for another year or two, whatever there might be, and then maybe then bring him back on the coaching staff or whatever you want to choose. But I think let it go off, let him play football. I don't think he's the kind of player you can stop playing football. Yeah, he'll probably still keep going until he's 40. Next up is Naby Keita, who joined from RB Leipzig for an initial £52.75 million fee with potential add-ons, and at the time he was actually Liverpool's most expensive record signing. And when people talk about Naby Keita, they kind of do this thing where they sigh and then go, I don't know, because of the fact that he's been so decisive in the fan base. Because for so long people have been saying we need a more progressive midfield, we need someone who can score goals, get assists, and he has been that when he's played. However, if you actually look at the stats, 129 appearances for Liverpool in 5 seasons, 11 goals and 6 assists. And that's not a great return, actually. And I think the fact that he's been injured for so long hasn't helped that, because he's constantly in and out of the side and can't get any rhythm. And then you finally, when he does get some rhythm, he gets injured again. And there's been this recurring story because you can see the talent in Naby Keita. He is a progressive ball carrier with a killer instinct and an eye for goal. And he likes to get stuck in defensively as well at times. But in comparison to Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum, he didn't suit us as well as I was hoping he would. Because obviously we bought him and we thought to ourselves, okay, he's the next evolution. He's the more of a Jurgen Klopp kind of midfielder than we all thought thought he was, because we thought at the time that Fabinho, Henderson, Wijnaldum, Milner, surely that's not the way Jurgen Klopp wants to play. What about these Marco Reus's, these Mario Götze, these attacking playmakers in midfield who Jurgen Klopp has and used at Dortmund? Surely these are the kind of players that he'd want to buy, and Keita seemed a step towards that direction, but actually it seemed a step in the wrong direction in hindsight, because it just hasn't worked out. And of course he took the iconic number 8 shirt. I respect him for taking it, being the first player since Steven Gerrard to actually take the number 8 shirt, but it hasn't worked out. And unfortunately, he might have to go down as a bit of a flop signing because of the fact that so much more was expected from him. And when you think about, our record signings, you've got Van Dijk, Nunes, Alisson, and then you've got like Naby Keita, and Nunes has got plenty more years to try and improve it, and he's got a long-term contract, and he's so young. Keita now is at the moment of his career where it's right for him to go. It's right for him to go because there's so much hope. And I've got the stats here. In the 16-17 season for RB Leipzig, he made 32 appearances, 8 goals and 8 assists. In the 17-18 season for RB Leipzig, he made 39 appearances, 9 goals and 7 assists. And that was a Leipzig season in his last season, which finished 6th in the Bundesliga. So you thought to yourself, okay, in all competitions, bearing in mind, that was 16 goal contributions. And you thought to yourself, okay, maybe it'll take a bit of time to adjust to the Premier League. But the fact that Jurgen Klopp decided to start him straight away showed how good Jurgen thought he was. Because at the time, you thought to yourself, Jurgen doesn't just put a player into his team because they've got to learn the system. They've got to learn the way we play. They've got to learn the partnerships with the players around him. But he went straight into that left-hand side of the three. And then he played and he looked amazing, And from there on out, it was his first season in which he got 30 odd appearances and he did really well. But from there onwards, it just didn't really work out. It was injury after injury. I think last season especially, there were times where he's getting substituted at half-time. If I think to myself, I think Villarreal away in the second half of the Champions League semi-final, where he started the game and Villarreal just ran amok among us and he had to get substituted. I think the same happened again in the season before against Real Madrid. And it's these things of getting substituted early where you remember, and it's not enforced because of a red card or anything, but it's the fact that, our midfield's a bit weak and you need to come off. And I don't think there'll be any shorter suitors for him. I think if he goes to, you could go back to Germany, Italy, Spain, France. I can easily see him going anywhere, really. I think maybe a league which is less physical, it's a bit slower, maybe a bit of warmer weather might help him as well. But I can definitely see him going and having a decent spell at another club, and I don't think there'll be shorter suitors. It's just one where you had so much hope and expectation that you wanted a bit more from him. And last but not least, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who signed from Arsenal for £35 million, and similar to Milner actually, which is quite funny enough, he was tired of playing on the right wing, on the left wing. He wanted to play midfield, and that's actually exactly what happened when he first joined Liverpool. He was kind of, Henderson was playing a CDM, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain took the right of the three role, and he was actually really good when he first started. He was learning the system, getting up to speed. But then if you remember, I think vividly in my mind, what comes to mind is his 2 thunderbolts against Manchester City, one in the Champions League, one in the league. And you think the way he was just getting the ball, driving through the midfield, and something we hadn't had at that moment in time. And he was actually Keita before Keita arrived. And, he's 29 now, I think, Ox. And there could have been a scenario where it was Fabinho, Ox, and Keita is running our midfield now. And in an ideal world, that would be it. And then you got the likes of Thiago and Henderson and Milner on the bench now for Liverpool. But it hasn't quite worked out. Similar to Naby Keita, injuries have played a massive part. So in the 6 years, he's got 146 appearances, 8 goals and 13 assists. And he's been fine, but more recently, he's kind of been relegated to doing the social media for the team, and his biggest loss will arguably be his impact in and around the team, good vibes, and he's another Englishman who's leaving along with Milner, so that's going to hamper a homegrown quota massively. So we need to sign English in the summer, but Ox, I don't really know where he's going to end up. I think normally I would have probably said a club like Newcastle before the takeover would have been perfect for him, but I don't know where he could go. Maybe he could go back to London, go to West Ham, but I've got only fond memories of him. It's just I wish he, again, similar to Keita, where I wish he was fit for more games and he made himself available, because he never got the chance to really, once he had his big injury, to work his way back into the team to fight for his place. It'd always be, we had injuries elsewhere in midfield, so therefore Ox would play. He here and there, get injured, and then he would never have a solid run of games and never get the chance to prove that he was good enough to be in the midfield again. And arguably, he's maybe more of a disappointment than Keita because of how quickly he burst on, and we were kind of all because if you think back at the time, like I said, the two thunderbolts against Manchester City, we were like, yes, this is it. This is exactly what our midfield needs. Laughing at Arsenal, why have you sold him to us? But it hasn't worked out at all. And maybe a club like West Ham would take him if Lanzini leaves in the summer. Declan Rice is looking like he's going to Arsenal, so maybe West Ham need 2 or 3 new midfielders to try and bolster their midfield. Maybe Ox could do it, play out wide if they want to as well. But it just hasn't worked out, and I feel really sorry for him, because at the end of the day, him and Keita, they both didn't want to be injured. I'm sure they would have preferred to be playing out on the field, but it just hasn't worked out, and it's kind of sad because everyone on Saturday will be talking about Firmino, they were talking about Milner as 2 Liverpool legends, and then you'll have Keita and Ox who'll also be leaving, but they'll be talking about them so completely differently as like what ifs. In a hypothetical universe, what player would you wish to have seen in the Liverpool team not be injured? They'll be up there. Like in most recent times, they'll be up there with like Daniel Sturridge and Divock Origi. What would have happened if these players didn't get injured? Where would their careers have been? But unfortunately, sometimes that is the way of life, and he just didn't cut it at the end of the day. And those are my thoughts on those 4 players leaving. And it's going to be really sad and emotional on Saturday at Anfield, because regardless of whether it's Milner or Firmino, who you think are absolute legends of the club, or if it's Keita and Ox, who you think, what if they've been fit for longer. Regardless, these players have given me the best years of my life supporting Liverpool Football Club, and I don't know, it could have been so much worse without these players and without Jurgen Klopp and the system, but it just feels kind of sad to say goodbye. I mean, even when Origi, Minamino, Mignolet in recent times, Carlo Torre, Ragnar Klavan, they're all giving me good memories, and Gini Wijnaldum, oh god, how can I forget Gini Wijnaldum? But they've all given me great, amazing memories, the best years of my life, and it's going to be sad to see them go. I can't wait to hear Firmino's song being sung so often at Anfield on Saturday. I mean, he got sung for like 10 to 12 minutes straight away to Leicester, which I thought was amazing. It was incredible to watch. Just turn up the TV, just listened. But it's going to be sad, whatever happens. Let me know, what were your favourite memories from these players?